Welcome, everyone, to the NewVision, OldWays podcast, a greatly ambitious journey of discovery where we can all learn to live better, mentally healthier, and more fulfilling lives. If you're just discovering us, feel free to go back and take the journey from the beginning. And if you're already a NewVision, OldWays fan, welcome back and enjoy season 8. And now, here is your host, Tony Marinaccio.
You are listening to NewVision, OldWays, the podcast that explores timeless wisdom for the modern mind in a fun, relaxed, and most important, interactive way with you, the listener. I am your host, Tony Marinaccio, and let's get the episode started. Welcome, Visioneers, to another great episode of the NewVision, OldWays podcast. And welcome, my friends, to season 8. Wow, how time has flown. And I will take a quick minute again to thank all of you who do listen, because without you, I certainly would not have a platform to stand on or even a microphone to speak into at this point. I would not be 72 episodes in, and I certainly would not have had one of the best experiences of my life. I love doing this. I really do. And I hope that comes through to everyone. This is, without a doubt, a true labor of love. And I also hope that when you are listening, you know that what I'm saying is coming from my heart. I don't have writers. It's only me. I don't have a staff. It's only me. But what I do have is a group of listeners that I have lovingly named the Visioneers. And that really is the best part of all of this. I get to interact with you, hear your praises, your complaints, and best yet, hear your needs and wants for future episodes. It is what drives me to keep pushing ahead, and push ahead I will do. So again, I thank you for 7 amazing seasons. I thank you for being there and sharing this experience with me. 80 countries, 512 cities. Who would have thunk it? To be honest with you, definitely not me. So awesome stuff. And now, what do I have in store for you today? I want to explore the idea of wisdom. Why wisdom? Well, we are now a society starved for real wisdom, and we have all of the information we can possibly handle, but wisdom seems to be in very short supply, so short that it almost feels extinct. So what happened? How can a civilization that has access to all the information it could possibly want or need be almost depleted of wisdom? Well, there is no better time than right now to figure this out. So let's start episode 72. The Death of Wisdom and the Rise of Manipulation.
Now let's begin this journey. To understand the modern glorification of stupidity, we must first understand what wisdom actually is and what it is not. Wisdom is not merely intelligence, it's not data or information or even knowledge. As the philosopher Socrates once said, the only true wisdom is in knowing you know nothing. Wisdom is born out of humility. It is the quiet awareness of the complexity of life and the refusal to make shallow judgments. It is earned, never given, felt, not flaunted, but our society has shifted its compass. We no longer value depth, we crave immediacy. We no longer revere the slow and quiet unfolding of understanding. We worship the quick fix, the viral quote, the bite-sized meme. Think of the public figures we elevate today. Celebrities who gain millions of followers for controversy, not contribution. Influencers who profit from shock, not substance. Politicians who simplify to manipulate rather than educate. In this world, to be loud is to be heard, and to be reflective is to be irrelevant. The result? A generation drowning in information, but starving for wisdom. It was German philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche who warned that when people are no longer able to distinguish between truth and illusion, society decays. That decay today is evident.
In most of season 7, we've talked about something that has been bothering me for quite a bit. And in one episode, we explored why so many people no longer seem excited about the future. In the next, we looked at the rise of teen takeovers, manufactured chaos, and a society that seems to be drifting further away from order and responsibility. Those episodes tended to ask what happened around us. Today, I want to ask a much more important question. Why? Why are we so easily manipulated, leaving wisdom by the wayside? What has fundamentally changed in our culture that could explain why so many people seem anxious, angry, restless, disconnected, and willing to accept almost any narrative placed in front of them? I think I finally found the thread that ties it all together. We've confused information with wisdom. Those two words sound familiar, but they couldn't be more different. Information, on one hand, tells you what happened or what someone wants you to believe happened. Wisdom helps you understand why it happened. Information fills your mind with facts. Wisdom teaches you what to do with those facts. Information can be downloaded in seconds. Wisdom often takes decades to earn and to learn. And somewhere over the last generation, we stopped pursuing wisdom and became obsessed with collecting information. At first, it felt like progress. The internet placed the world's libraries in our pockets. Search engines answered questions that once required hours in an encyclopedia. Smartphones gave us access to virtually every piece of human knowledge ever recorded. Now, artificial intelligence can summarize entire books, explain complicated ideas, and answer questions in a moment. By every measurable standard, we should be the wisest civilization in human history. Yet, if we're honest, it definitely does not feel that way. Because it's not. We seem more confused about reality than ever before. We argue over obvious facts. We react before we think. We mistake opinions for evidence and emotions for truth. We have become incredibly informed, yet surprisingly uncertain about what is actually real. That tells me something important. Information was never enough. Information alone does not complete the process. If you go back through history, every great civilization understood that knowledge alone was dangerous unless it was tempered by wisdom. The ancient Greeks elevated wisdom above intelligence. Socrates became famous not because he claimed to have all the answers, but because he understood the importance of asking better questions. Aristotle believed wisdom was cultivated over an entire lifetime through good habits, discipline, and careful observation. The Stoics believed wisdom meant learning to govern yourself before trying to govern anyone else. What a novel idea, right? Learning to govern yourself before trying to govern anyone else. Eastern philosophies reached remarkably similar conclusions. Whether you read Confucius, Lao Tzu, or the teaching of Buddhism, you find the same reoccurring message. Mastering yourself is more important than mastering the world. That wasn't just philosophy, it was practical advice for living. For thousands of years, wisdom was passed from one generation to the next. Grandparents shared stories that carried lessons. Parents taught responsibility long before children experienced freedom. Teachers challenged students to think rather than simply memorize. Communities relied on elders because experience mattered. Those people weren't respected because they were old. They were respected because they had lived through hardship, success, failure, disappointment, sacrifice, and recovery. Their advice had survived contact with reality. There is something profoundly valuable about learning from someone who has already walked the road you are about to travel. Today, we've convinced ourselves that experience can be replaced by speed. Instead of asking someone who has lived through something, we ask our phone. Instead of wrestling with difficult questions, we search for immediate answers. Instead of reflecting, we scroll. Instead of contemplating, we consume. We know more facts than our grandparents ever did, but many of us have far less perspective. We become a culture that celebrates being informed while neglecting the far more difficult work of becoming wise. An easy example of this could be a student enrolled in just a few classes now think they have the ability to tell the rest of us how we should live, what I should believe in, what I should vote for, without a single source or ounce of wisdom behind any of it. They scream into megaphones and blow their whistles and bang their drums, but when asked for better ideas to replace the old ones, all they can muster up is calling us, and you guessed it, racist, Nazis, and fascists. And where is the wisdom in that? You can look all you want, but it ain't gonna be there. To help explain this, I believe most of us have lived through three distinct ages without even realizing it. The first was the age of wisdom. Knowledge moved slowly, but it carried context. Ideas were tested over generations. Character mattered because your reputation followed you throughout your community. Patience wasn't considered weakness, it was considered maturity. And decisions were expected to have consequences. And people generally understood that their actions echoed through families and communities. Then came the age of information. This was an incredible achievement. Human knowledge exploded. Medicine advanced. Technology improved our lives. Communication became instant. We solved problems that previous generations could scarcely imagine a solution for. There is much to celebrate about this age because information, when used well, empowers people. But then something unexpected happened. The information didn't stop growing. It started competing. Every website wanted your attention. Every social media platform wanted your time. Every news organization wanted your loyalty. Every influencer wanted your trust. Every political movement wanted your support. Every corporation wanted your idea. The battle was no longer about giving you information. The battle became controlling which information you saw. So then, without realizing it, we entered a third age, the age of manipulation. This isn't necessarily manipulation by one organization or one ideology. It's much broader than that. It is a culture where countless individuals, institutions, advertisers, media outlets, activists, political movements, and algorithms all compete for one incredibly valuable resource: your attention. Once they capture your attention, they begin shaping your perception. That is very different from simply informing you. Today, two neighbors can live on the same street and inhabit entirely different realities, because the information each receives has been filtered by algorithms designed to maximize their engagement. One person's phone reinforces one worldview, while another person's reinforces the opposite. Neither necessarily sees the same evidence, both becoming increasingly convinced that their perspective is the only reasonable one because it is constantly repeated back to them. Repetition begins to feel like truth. Let's look at an example of Bernie Sanders. He has been saying the same spiel for 40 years, accusing the oligarchs of being the problem we all have to fear. It's a bit funny when you look at that side of the political spectrum, because some of the richest, in fact, the richest politician ever, Nancy Pelosi, resides over there. Bernie himself is certainly not hurting. He is approaching $3 million in net worth. Way to go, Bern. Show them oligarchs who's boss. And that is one of the oldest psychological tricks in history. Not because repetition proves something, because familiarity creates comfort. Wisdom interrupts that process. Wisdom asks uncomfortable questions. Wisdom says, what evidence might prove me wrong? Wisdom is humble enough to admit that no one sees the whole picture. Manufactured reality rarely asks those questions because certainty attracts more followers than curiosity ever will. Now, think about what this environment looks like through the eyes of a teenager. Many young people today have never experienced a world without constant stimulation. They carry unlimited entertainment in their pockets. They receive endless notifications, endless opinions, endless videos, endless outrage, endless comparisons, and endless invitations to react. But what they often receive far less of is purpose. Purpose cannot be streamed. Character cannot be downloaded. Resilience cannot be learned in 15-second clips. Wisdom cannot be built through algorithms. Young people desperately need meaningful challenges. They need responsibility. They need adults who expect something from them. They need mentors who care enough to say no. They need opportunities to accomplish difficult things that produce genuine confidence instead of temporary excitement. When purpose disappears, excitement often becomes the substitute. That doesn't excuse destructive behavior. People are responsible for their own actions, but it helps explain why some young people become drawn to reckless behavior, viral notoriety, or destructive events that promise belonging, identity, or excitement for a few fleeting hours. When meaningful achievement feels distant, unhealthy excitement can become a counterfeit purpose. As we spoke about in episode 71, I don't think teen takeovers begin in the parking lots. I think they begin years earlier when wisdom slowly disappears from homes, schools, neighborhoods, and communities. This is why I become concerned whenever experience is casually dismissed simply because someone is older. Every generation has something to contribute. Older generations possess perspective earned over decades. Younger generations often bring fresh ideas and energy. Healthy societies need both, but somewhere along the way, we've allowed a false choice to develop, as though progress requires discarding everything that came before us. History suggests we do exactly the opposite. And maybe then we will all hear less of, "I know, Mom, I know, Dad," when they know nothing at all. Wouldn't that be nice?
Graduation. Let's see how much students actually know what they stand for. If you get them right, you win $100. First question, have you guys chanted "From the river to the sea"?
Yes.
Okay, which river, which sea?
The Sea of...
So you don't know that?
No.
And the answer was the Mediterranean and the Jordan. What does Hamas say their number one goal is according to their charter?
They just wanted to free Palestine.
It's to murder all Jews around the world. How many years did Israel occupy Gaza?
Late 1800s, the entire time.
Since 48.
It's actually under Egyptian control for the first 20 or so years, and then Israel actually left Gaza in 2006.
I'm shocked. Wait, they left?
What does Intifada revolution mean?
I don't know what that means.
But you've chanted it?
Yeah.
It's like a global call to murder Jews.
Wow.
Did you know you said that?
No,
Would you say it again?
probably not.
Students don't seem to know what they stand for. So wouldn't it be great if these expensive colleges actually taught them something?
The thing is that those expensive colleges are teaching them something, a horrible set of values and militant ignorance.
There is another piece of this puzzle that we simply cannot ignore. And it's uncomfortable to talk about sometimes because it involves one of the institutions that families have trusted for generations, our education system. For decades, parents have been told that the path to success is simple. Work hard, get good grades, go to college, earn a degree, and opportunity will follow. Millions of families sacrificed, borrowed, and worked overtime because they believed that promise. Yet today, far too many graduates walk across a stage with a diploma in one hand and tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars in student debt in the other, only to discover that the marketplace has little demand for what they spend 4 years or more studying. That isn't just disappointing, it's a profound failure of priorities.
Started when we took shop class out of high school. And when we did that, we really just unleashed a storm of unintended consequences. Around the same time, we started telling kids that the best path for the most people was a 4-year degree. Not just a good path, but a path that if you didn't take, you're going to wind up with some sort of vocational consolation prize. That steady drumbeat, after 40 years, that's what we're seeing right now. We've got over 11 million open positions, most of which don't require a 4-year degree. We got $1.7 trillion in student debt on the books. We're lending money to kids who will never be able to pay it back to train them for a lot of jobs that no longer exist. And we still just have our thumb on the scale. We're still saying these jobs are good, these jobs are bad. I've been hearing for years that robots are going to wreck blue-collar work. Turns out AI is coming for your white-collar job.
Yeah.
It's all backwards.
Education should prepare young people to think critically, solve problems, communicate effectively, understand history, manage their finances, build strong character, and develop skills that create value in the real world. Instead, too often, students leave knowing how to repeat fashionable theories, but struggle how to balance a budget, evaluate evidence, understand basic economics, or navigate the realities of adult life. They have accumulated credentials without necessarily acquiring any wisdom at all. Even more troubling is the growing perception that some educational environments encourage ideological conformity rather than genuine intellectual curiosity. A healthy education should expose students to competing ideas, teach them how to evaluate evidence, challenge their assumptions, and develop the confidence to think independently. When classrooms become places where certain viewpoints are discouraged or where students feel pressure to adopt particular ideological perspectives instead of questioning them, education begins to lose one of its most important purposes. Universities should produce thoughtful, independent adults, not graduates who simply exchange one set of accepted beliefs for another. The greatest tragedy is that people paying the highest price are often the students themselves and the families who wanted nothing more than to give their children a better future. They invested their savings, accepted years of debt, and placed their trust in institutions that promised opportunity. They deserved an education that equipped young people for productive careers, independent thinking, and meaningful lives. They deserved an education that produced wisdom as well as knowledge. If we truly care about the next generation, then we must have the courage to ask an uncomfortable question. Are we educating our young people for life? Or are we simply credentializing them for disappointment? Those are not the same thing, and the answer will shape our society for decades to come.
And now, Visioneers, let's take a quick break to let you know how you can support the show. By clicking on the Patreon donate link in the show notes, or by typing in patreon.com/NewVisionOldWays, or at the NewVisionOldWays.com website, you can show your support by donating directly to the New Vision Old Ways podcast. These episodes take time and money to produce, and by donating what you are able to, it will allow us to grow the show and give you the best content that we can. Of course, you can cancel at any time. Remember, click on the Patreon donate link in the show notes, or by typing in patreon.com/NewVisionOldWays, or at the NewVisionOldWays.com website. Hint, you are able to donate a one-time lump sum. Then, cancel right after. Options are always a good thing. Thank you, and now, back to the show.
The strongest civilizations built upon the wisdom of previous generations while embracing new discoveries. They didn't choose between the old and the new, they combined them. That's really what New Vision Old Ways has always been about, not rejecting technology, not rejecting progress, not pretending the past was perfect. The past was never perfect, but it did understand some things we've allowed ourselves to forget. It understood that freedom requires responsibility. It understood that rights require character. It understood that families matter and communities matter and faith matters, mentorship matters, discipline matters, truth matters. Those aren't outdated ideas. They're timeless ones. Artificial intelligence, incredible as it is, illustrates this perfectly. AI can explain philosophy, summarize history, organize research, and help solve incredible complex problems. I use it regularly, and I think it will become one of humanity's greatest educational tools. But AI has never buried a parent. It has never raised a child. It has never struggled through addiction, rebuilt after failure, or learned humility from painful mistakes. It can organize wisdom, but it cannot live it. Only human beings can do that. Which brings me to perhaps the most hopeful part of today's conversation. If wisdom can be lost, it can also be rebuilt. It starts by slowing down long enough to think. Read books instead of only headlines. Spend time with people who have lived longer than you. Ask questions instead of assuming you already know the answers. And here's an important one. Learn history before trying to change the present or the future. And when I say learn history, I mean actual history, not the sugar-coated, skewed version meant to sway public opinion or to protect someone's feelings. History is history. The good, the bad, the ugly, it's all there to teach us lessons, not to get offended by. Welcome disagreement instead of fearing it. Teach children responsibility before entitlement. Give them work that matters. Help them earn confidence instead of simply protecting their self-esteem. Most importantly, become the kind of adult whose life demonstrates wisdom rather than merely talking about it. Children don't become what we tell them to become. They become what they consistently observe. And that is the real challenge facing our generation. Not just creating smarter children, but also creating wiser adults. Because wisdom has always been contagious, but so is foolishness. Every civilization eventually chooses which one will pass to the next generation. I believe we're standing at that crossroads today. We can continue chasing faster information or louder opinions and more manufactured realities, or we could begin the slower, harder, far more rewarding work of building wisdom in our homes, our communities, and ourselves without worrying about who you may be offending. The future doesn't belong to the people who know the most facts or scream the loudest. It belongs to the people who have learned how to use those facts with courage, humility, discernment, and character. Knowledge may tell us where we're going, but only wisdom can tell us whether we're heading in the right direction. And if we want our children to inherit a future worth embracing, like we talked about in episode 70, then perhaps the greatest gift we can give them isn't another device, another app, or another source of information. Perhaps the greatest gift we can leave them is the wisdom to recognize truth and character to live by it, and the courage to defend it when the world insists that a manufactured reality is easier than the real thing. After everything we have just discussed, I think it is important to go way back to something I have touched on many times in various episodes, but especially going back to episode 4, if you could believe that, and that is mindfulness. Why is that so important now? Well, earlier in this episode, I talked about the importance of changing yourself first before we embark on the crusade of changing everyone else. You can scream as loud as you want, but no one is going to listen to you if you lack the most important key element, wisdom. One of the things I've noticed over the last several years is that many people, especially younger people, although certainly not exclusively, have developed an overwhelming desire to change everyone around them before they've taken time to truly understand themselves. They want to transform society, rewrite history, dismantle institutions, and correct every perceived injustice. Now, let me be clear. Wanting to improve the world is not the problem. Every generation should want to leave things better than they found them. The problem arises when passion outruns wisdom. History teaches us that lasting change rarely comes from the loudest voice in the room. It comes from the clearest mind. Yelling louder is not the same as thinking deeper. Outrage can certainly draw attention, but it almost never produces durable solutions. We've created a culture that often mistakes emotional intensity for moral authority, as though the strongest feelings automatically produce the strongest arguments. And of course, they don't. Real change has always belonged to people who first developed the wisdom to understand the complexity of the problems they were trying to solve. They studied history before trying to rewrite it. They listened before they spoke. They wrestled with opposing viewpoints instead of immediately dismissing them. They understood that nearly every important issue has unintended consequences and that good intentions alone are never enough. This is one of the reasons I believe mindfulness is so important. Not because it's trendy, not because it's simply a way to reduce stress, but because genuine mindfulness creates the space between emotion and action. It teaches us to pause before reacting, to observe our own thoughts before becoming consumed by them, and to ask a question that has become surprisingly rare in modern life. What if I'm missing something? And that single question is the beginning of wisdom. Mindfulness reminds us that our first responsibility is not to control everyone else. It is to govern ourselves before we try to reshape society. We should first learn to discipline our own thinking, examine our own assumptions, and cultivate the humility to recognize that none of us sees the entire picture, as I said before. Ironically, the people who possess the greatest wisdom are often the least interested in forcing it on others. They persuade through character, through thoughtful conversation, through consistent action, and by living lives that others naturally want to emulate. Perhaps if we spent less time trying to win arguments and more time trying to understand reality, we would discover something remarkable. Wisdom doesn't silence passion, it gives passion direction. It transforms anger into purpose, emotion into discipline, and conviction into meaningful action. The world has never changed for long by people who simply shout the loudest. It has always been changed by those who first learn to master themselves. And mindfulness is the perfect place to start. And if you want to learn more about mindfulness, check out episode 4. But the next episode will take a deeper dive into mindfulness than I did in episode 4 by far. So stay tuned, Visioneers. It's coming soon.
So, what did you think of this episode or any of the episodes? We would love to find out. And here is where to get a hold of the show and let us know. These are in the show notes, but as always, here they are. There is a Patreon support link in the show notes and on the NewVision OldWays.com website that you can click on that will allow you to donate to the show and show your support. By donating what you can, it will allow us to book guests and cover costs. Anything will help. Cancel anytime. You can also message the show from each episode on your various platforms. Just look for the Send Us a Text Message link. If that doesn't work for you, you can email us at newvisionoldways@gmail.com. You can find us on what was Twitter, now X, at NewVisionOldWay, no S on that one. Check the NewVision OldWays YouTube channel. Type in NewVision, one word, OldWays, one word, channel, and please subscribe. It is free and will show support for the show. It really means a lot and will help grow the show on YouTube. Find us on Facebook, NewVision OldWays, podcast you should easily find us. And as a reminder, these are still growing platforms for us and expanding all the time, so we need your help to get the flow going with the community. And last but not least, if you can do me a huge favor and subscribe to us, like us, follow us, leave a review on whatever platform you found us on. That would be so appreciated. That will also help secure guests that we will be booking in the future. So, here we are.
Season 8.
We have a lot to cover, so thank you for listening. We can't wait to get your input, and I also can't wait until we get together for the next episode of New Vision Old Ways. Until then, stay true to yourself, stay informed, and stay empowered.
But the most important thing is...
This episode and all the episodes of New Vision Old Ways podcast have been written, engineered, and produced by Tony Marinaccio and TKM Productions.